grew up very close to where the murders happened, and Lucas actually grew up where the murders happened, and I didn't know anything more about the events other than the kind of bodies in the barrels tag that had been given, and I guess the reporting on the case. I think in 2002 when the guys were arrested. When I was shown the script that Sean Grant had written, I had no idea about this kind of, firstly, this relationship between this young kid and this kind of father figure and mentor in John Bunting. But I also had no idea really how, I guess, involved the community was in the story, and there was I guess a perspective there that I thought was really compelling and really interesting.
But I felt like it's one of those films that it's shot in the local area. I really wanted to be one of the people representing the area. I didn't want it to be some actor from somewhere else. I wanted to be the guy from the area that represents my local area the way it should be.
And why choose to tell this story from this character's point of view? There were any number of ways you could have gone into these set of events, but why pick on this relationship?
Because I couldn't. I mean, I don't think I could make the film if it was any other point of view, to be honest. I mean, I think there were other scripts around that were John's point of view, and I thought that this was the most compelling part of the story. It was how a kid is kind of corrupted like this, and a place kind of sitting in this stew of kind of apathy, and this guy comes in like a Western and really very quickly seduces and leads a group of people towards a kind of evil that's unimaginable. I mean, it was that was the end that Sean found, and it definitely was a perspective that was very fresh, in the case, and hadn't been really reported. There were 11 murders of the most graphic and horrific detail, and if I brought even a quarter of what happened on screen, it would be, kind of unwatchable. We were very much led that the violence had to be connected to his journey and his turning points, and I guess the points of initiation that John gets him to be involved in throughout the story. There's an enormous amount that's inferred, but there was one murder that we thought was incredibly important to bring to screen, which is obviously the murder of the brother and the strangulation of him. It's the first time you see John involved in a murder, and it's also the first time that you've got to really understand the idea of this guy doing a mercy killing on his brother, and the point at which the audience are almost kind of there right at the edge and about to tip over is the point where Jamie comes in and kills his brother. I thought was incredibly important. There's a kind of residue to that scene which propels, a kind of hidden narrative throughout the third act, especially with the other murders that appear in the film. But it was a really, it was a real balancing act, of what to show and where do you take an audience, at what brink do you take an audience. It's a type of violence too on screen that is very real. I wanted the audience not to have a kind of compass with it. I want it to be very visceral, and for you to feel like you were in that room in the point of view of the kid. People started coming up to us and curious and wanting to talk about it, and we were very open to tell them about the the type of film that we were making. So as soon as that dialogue kind of started, it was really interesting. People kind of wanted to talk about it again, and wanted to be engaged with it and wanted to talk about how it affected the community and where the community was now. And it had the opposite effect. I thought everyone would kind of shut the door, and it would be very, very difficult to get access, to the community. But it was kind of the opposite. And I think in Australia, I think people were incredibly surprised by the relationships in the story, and I guess the state of the community or where it was at when John came into it.
And how complicit do you feel the community was in his acts?
I think I don't think it was a whole suburb that, I think everyone was as surprised as everyone else of what John was doing. But I do think there was, even the boys didn't, the brothers didn't really know what was going on. But I think, I think that there was a sentiment in the community that it had gone through many patterns of sexual abuse, and pedophilia was an issue and a problem. And even now, when we were talking to the community, it was still a very volatile issue. And you could understand how someone or a figure like John kind of came in like a perfect storm and was able to very quickly kind of create an ideology and garner the support of many people. And he was quite. I mean, he's highly unusual. The four of them are. I mean, a group of serial killers is a unique case. Usually, they kind of work in solitude, and there's kind of all the cliches about them. But these guys were really well known. John was very visible in the community. When we walked around, people would say, "I used to look after my kids or fix my car," and I was just as shocked as everyone else when I heard. That was something that was quite revealing to us.
The phone messages as well, which also provide a very distinctive sort of oral signature for this film.
Yeah, well, they were probably the most chilling details in the actual case, and they were played in the courts. And we took kind of many of the transcripts of the tapes, and also used them as a way of suggesting particular murders within the film. They called them the death tapes, the sort of voices from the grave. And John not only used them to stop people. They were actually very successful. People received these tapes and did think that their loved ones were in a different part of the country and or were upset with them and so forth. So they were. When they were played in court, they were incredibly chilling and probably the most kind of moving part of the case.
I was going to say too that I think the other thing is that the performances were so amazing when they came in. These guys were so incredible that the music was allowed to become a character of its own as well in there. So I guess I was really lucky in that respect.
There are some people that are very strong against it, and there are others that have become hugely supportive of the film and the type of film that it is. We had really good audiences that came and saw the film, and I think just a pretty robust debate started to kind of happen about the film and the type of film that it is and the violence in the film, but also people really starting to discuss for the first time the background to the events that as I said before, apart from the kind of more macabre details of the murders, hadn't really been revealed before. So no, it was for a good 2 or 3 weeks there, it was a pretty. Snowtown is the sort of thing that you mention in Australia and everyone knows straight away. Even our poster was just the word. So people are going into the story knowing very well that it's based on true facts.